Good morning, brothers and sisters. I hope everybody's well, and I'm wishing a fine and pleasant Monday to everyone. Now, I've just watched the Usyk and Dubois fight back, and I have to say, for me, boxing is in the toilet. Too many problems with boxing nowadays. The amount of controversy that surrounds and shrouds modern day boxing, it's just too much for me. I can't enjoy watching it anymore. There's so many things I could go on about why boxing isn't what it used to be. First of all, the fighters. The fighters just aren't as good as they once were. Now, Tyson Fury is my man, and as far as I'm concerned, he is the best heavyweight of our era. I've heard people say he's the greatest fighter of all time. Anybody who says that doesn't know enough about the history of boxing and some of the magnificent fighters that we've had from times gone by. Now, I love Tyson Fury. I've met all the family. What a great bunch of people. And Tyson Fury is, in my opinion, the best heavyweight of our era by far. And his fights with Deontay Wilder were like throwback fights. They were that trilogy. I've never got more enjoyment out of watching a trilogy in modern times than those three fights. You don't see trilogies hardly anymore. That was the thing back in the day, in the 70s and the 80s. All the boxing that I watched, I started boxing in the mid-90s, and I was told by my coaches and by the gym to go and watch all the fights from the 70s and the 80s. And the 90s boxing was current boxing at the time, which was brilliant. That day's gone with boxing. Nobody was scared to lose a fight. All the greatest fighters all taken multiple losses because they would fight anyone. It didn't matter. They weren't trying to protect that zero. It was much more of a sport than it was a business, a politicised, monopolised business, what it is today. And the heart as well. Now, I'm going to use Daniel Dubois as an example. Now, I like Daniel Dubois. Now, he's fighting at world level. Now, that's the second time we've seen him stopped on jabs. Now, I'm not saying he wasn't hurt. I'm not saying that. But what I'm saying is, I'm using him as an example. A lot of fighters these days, they seem to be absolutely fine when it's all going their way. When it's going their way, it's fine. But when it's not going their way and they're getting into deep water down the stretch and fatigue is starting to set in, seems to me like the majority of them don't want to know. They quit, they give up. Well, you never seen that in boxing, from times gone by. It's just changed so much. I don't enjoy watching it. Let's use the world title fight at the weekend for an example. Right. Can somebody tell me what the war or the conflict in Ukraine had to do with that fight? The answer is nothing. You've got one person from Ukraine. Well, wow. What's the conflict actually got to do with boxing? It hasn't got anything to do with boxing. But this is what you get now. Everything's intertwined. All the politics and that are involved. I don't want to hear about any conflict or any war zones when I'm watching boxing. I'm not interested. So that's what boxing used to do when I used to watch it. It used to take me away from everything else. I was so focused on the fight that was in front of us. Now, everything else is involved. None of it's got nothing to do with boxing. This is why I much prefer to watching bare knuckle and MMA, because there's nowhere near the politics involved. The best fight the best, and that's how it is. Anyway, I fell out with boxing, and I think it's in the toilet. And that's it. Bye-bye for now, brothers and sisters. Have a pleasant day.